had done a video, VidDevo, and I got ready to produce it, meaning to put it together into, like having an intro and an exit. It was on a Tozer, matter of fact, and I got done with it, and it was kind of a serious thing, it was kind of like sober, kind of sobering. And I know that lots of times people, read a devotional to kind of be encouraged, and I call Tozer teaching because, after all, Tozer is so compact, and all of his devotional material is taken from teachings that are kind of like cut up into pieces so that they fit, that compiled, that I just treat it as a teaching, so I just go for it, whatever the Lord wants to say, God, I'm yours, and I got done with it, and I felt like, wow, man, that's pretty heavy. Lord, people kind of like the idea of kind of like nice, kind of like, smooth sailing, so I kind of walked away, I just said, well, God, I don't know, whenever I get, I just go walking away with the Lord, wait on Him, I don't post it, I just go walk away from it all, the ministry, everything kind of take some time, sit down, relax, take a nap. No, I'm kidding, I didn't take a nap. I love a nap. I could use a nap. But, take some time to think about it, pray, consider what it is that God inspired me with, and whether or not it was just for me and I need to just like not post it, or whether it's, worthy of being shared, and let the chips fall where they may. Because after all, Jesus, Jesus had this wonderful following, and then, they came and they heard a message, and He fed them and stuff, and He gave them food, and they went off, and then they came back the next day, and so first thing out of His mouth, He says, bite me. Yeah, no, really, Jesus said, bite me. Oh, okay, well, maybe He said, eat my flesh and drink my blood, except you do that, you won't enter the kingdom of heaven. But if we put it in modern day, we say, bite me. So they didn't, and they split, because nobody likes to be told, bite me. They want to know what's going on, they want to get a handle on it, they want to grasp it, kind of put it in their life, make it applicable. Well, Jesus said, look, if you don't eat my body and drink my blood, you have nothing to do with me. You are not mine. And they were like, okay, exit stage right. And they were gone. About that time, Jesus goes, well, I did what God told me to, His Father. Says, you guys going to leave me too? And they said, well, where will we go? We don't understand you anyway, so what difference does it make? Well, it's kind of like Tozer, I was sharing on really what Jesus said, like loving your enemies and all the tough stuff that you really can't do, that you don't want to hear about because you know that you've already compromised, because that somebody told you that you don't have to do it, and you just want to go out and shoot somebody, and kill them instead of love them, the routine, it's like, nah, I don't want to hear that kind of message, that's too much of a Christian message. I want to hear the American Christian message, God and country first, patriotism, wave the flag and shoot that SOB, wipe out the Taliban, kill the enemies, nuke them all, let God sort them out. That kind of American message that, we call Christian. At least that's what I get from a lot of Christians that talk to me. Gun rights and gun privileges, and we got to kill because we have to kill or be killed. And that's kind of what it was about, was to use a motto that we get from American Christianity, which is kill or be killed, compared to what Jesus said, love your enemies. And how do we rectify the two? And Tozer, needless to say, he don't mince words. He goes with Jesus. So I felt bad about that. Because I knew, oh man, Lord, what are you going to do? Tell me that, share that with them, and nobody's going to like that kind of message. They all want to shoot somebody. They all grew up with Warcraft and Leon Uris and Battle Cry and join the service and kill someone and slice and dice. Never mind that we, have these PTSDs and all this kind of like, after effects from killing people and murdering the enemy. That's right, it's killing because we're the good guys and they're the bad guys. So for us, it's killing. For them, it's murder. I see. So when Jesus said, love your enemies, we're not murdering, we're killing because... What was that again? Could you explain it to me? Anyways, I don't need to know. I got the Bible. God already told me the answer, so I shared, and I felt bad about it because I already knew that people are gonna forget that one. We're throwing that one off. So I just kind of went, well, Lord, I'm not gonna post it yet. Then I thought, and I sat down, relaxed for a while, and kind of enjoyed myself and ate a couple sandwiches, and then I said, I should do since I did Tozer, and I'm not going to post it, I ought to do Utmost anyways. Then I read it and I went, okay, I got the message, God. I put Tozer back on. We're posting Tozer. It's kind of like, well, if you're going to put Tozer, if you're going to put Utmost, you sure better put Tozer because they go hand in hand. And we know that utmost means you're giving your utmost and the uttermost, otherwise it ain't utmost because it's only just you trying to pacify your conscience to make it feel like it's a good thing because you're not doing the right thing, because God will make you go to the uttermost if you're going to read utmost. The abandonment of God. God so loved the world that he gave. John 3:16. Salvation is not merely deliverance from sin, nor the experience of personal holiness. The salvation of God is deliverance out of self entirely into union with himself. Let's be real. Salvation is the elimination of self into union with himself. That means you die to yourself and you live for his self. So you don't have a man cave, you have a Jesus cave. Oh, wait a minute. Jesus has an altar. Jesus has a holy place. Jesus has a sanctuary. Jesus has all these things, but we have man caves because we want to hide in our caves. Doesn't that sound like a prophecy to be fulfilled? In the latter days, the men would cry out to the rocks to hide them or go into their caves, to get away from God, family, friends, do their thing there that they won't do in the living room. Notice what it used to be called the living room. Now it's the man cave. The entertainment center. That's kind of selfish, isn't it? Self-oriented, self-aware, self-fulfilling, self-satisfying. I wonder how you get into that when you're a Christian. Well, I got my place online. How'd you get wound up? Who wound you up? God wound you up? Really? You counted it all joy when you fell into divers trials and tribulations, knowing that the working of your faith produces patience, but let patience have its perfect work, that the man of God might be perfect and acceptable in God's sight, that he might be perfectly equipped for all the things that God is doing. Were you perfectly equipped to handle your stresses? As a matter of fact, doesn't God put stress on you so that you will be stressed, so that he can compress you into a diamond because you're cold? So, where is the winding down part? Should you have gotten wound up in the first place? Or should you be turning it over to God? Always. Walking in the Spirit and not the flesh. Because if you walk in the flesh, we know you'll fulfill the lust of the flesh. But if you walk in the Spirit, you don't fulfill the lust of the flesh. That's my problem. I was in the flesh. Forgive me, Lord. So, this salvation stuff isn't just me getting saved from hell. So, it's not me trying to clean up my act. Personal holiness. But this salvation of God is deliverance out of self. Man, that don't seem right. You mean I got to give something up in order to get it? I thought I could just get it, freely, and it didn't cost me nothing. I thought salvation was free. And it didn't cost anything except Jesus dying, and all I got to do is accept it, and I go my way. My experimental knowledge of salvation will be along the line of deliverance from sin and of personal holiness, but salvation means that the Spirit of God has brought me into touch with God's personality, and I am thrilled with something infinitely greater than myself. I am caught up into the abandonment of God. I am raptured into His will, to no longer be I doing my thing, but I wanting to do His thing in everything and in all ways, sharing and declaring His work and handiwork. So that I'm not really all about self. I'm all about Him. So self really kind of doesn't cut it, does it? You think you could ask your wife or your husband what part of you was really selfish, and they would be honest with you? Oops! That's cheating. Don't ask the spouse if you got one. Do you think maybe running out into church, and jumping in the first pews, is kind of a little selfish? You're not serving someone else, you're taking for yourself. Do you think walking in and closing the door behind you is a little selfish because you're not opening the door for someone else, you're serving self in order to get in? You think that parking spot was specially designed just for you? Because after all, you wouldn't want to give it to someone else. Why would you do that and pass it by? Well, Lord, don't bug me. I'm not like that. I'm not you. I'm me. I'm selfish. Yeah, you are. That's why we read utmost. To say that we are called to preach holiness or sanctification is to get into a side eddy, a sidestep. We are called to proclaim Jesus Christ, the person, the reality, the living Jesus. We are here to proclaim a relationship with Him. The fact that He saves from sin is part of that which He does. And the fact that He makes us holy is part of the effect of the wonderful abandonment of God. But it is God doing in us, not we achieving through us that which we see and call deliverance from sin and personal holiness. No, it's not. We can't make ourselves holy any more than religion can. Because, frankly, the only one that is holy wants to do it for us, as opposed to we do it to us. Because every time you see someone trying to be holy, you usually find them trying to be legalistic. And then they have to condemn someone so that they feel holy because they aren't like me, and I'm better than them because I'm up here and they're down there, so I obviously am holy. But you see, God accounts and accrues holiness in a different way. He doesn't see it as an elevation thing. He sees it as an inward thing, an action that reflects the nature of God Himself, which is what? What is God's nature? Love. Ooh. Oh no, He's not going to say it, is He? He's not going to tell me about my enemies. He's not going to tell me about my friends. He's not going to say that word. Is it the 4-letter word? L-O-V-E. Guess what that means to me? L-O-V-E. Guess what that means to me? Love. You can't be holy without love, because that's righteousness, and it's, are you ready? You're not going to like it. Self-righteousness. The self part again? The part that drags you along, going, yes, Master, I am myself, and this is what myself looks like, Master. It looks like a hunchback. Notre Dame. You're walking around religiously acting like you're something you're not because you really look like the hunchback. Because that's what self-righteousness is. It's a hunchback wandering around trying to do religious things when he really wants to be loved. And that's all the hunchback ever really wanted. He just wanted to be loved. And if he'd have been loved, he'd have gone, love, 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 love. All you need is love. Do, 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 do. And he'd have lost his hunch and he'd have started dancing and singing, rejoicing. The Lord would have healed him. See? Would have ruined the story, but that's what self is. It is a selfish desire that warps and magnifies itself, and it just starts to manipulate you into yourself, and you start pulling inwardly, and you start twisting and turning, and everything that was designed to be one way goes completely opposite, the wrong way. You become a hunchback, so to speak. So the self-righteous that should be the righteousness of God imputed to them, unfortunately, don't recognize that the way to get rid of that self-righteousness is to crucify self. Because that's what salvation is meant to do. You give yourself to God. Notice that? Give yourself. Here, God, take me, I'm yours. All that I am, all that I ever will be, all that I want, all that I think I want, all that I really want, all that I'm not telling you I want, all that really matters to me, I give to you. Now, people find at different times in their life that easy to do. I did when I first got sick. Then I found it harder later on. I didn't want to. I told God that. See, I'm a little different than you. I'm perfectly willing and honest. I'm perfectly willing and honest to be truthful with God and say, no, God, I don't want to. No, I'm selfish. I don't want to do that. And I've told my wife at that point and juncture one time in our life, I said, look, here it is. Here's our relationship. You can choose which way you want to go. I said, I don't care which way you choose. If you want to follow God, you follow God. If you don't want to follow God, you got to be honest about it. You don't follow God. But you do, truthfully, what you choose to do. You don't mince words about it. You don't play games about it. You go and do what God, or you have a relationship with God to be. And so you either do it or don't, because there's no in between. It's black and white. Yes and no. It's not like, I think I'll get around to it sooner or later. No, because whoever's not for Jesus is against him. Whoever's not doing what Jesus said is rebelling against him. If you're not doing what God said to do, you are in rebellion. Period. It's not a question of waiting. It's a question of do it. And if you did it, it's done. Then you have salvation. But when you abandon yourself to God, then, just like the wind blowing and the storm's coming, the wind bloweth whither it will, you need to know where it's coming from and where it's going. So choose everyone by the Spirit of God. How much abandoned you are to God is by manifestation of that literal scripture that Jesus said. If the Spirit wanted you to get up and go, would you do it? If God said today, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you get it planned, not when you get your car together, not when you packed it all up, not when you had all your ducks in a row, would you get up and go if God said today, leave this city? Now, I know each will bought that. I don't know that you would do that. I have in my life. Got up, walked out of a job, walked out of a life, but got up, packed my backpack, which was just simply a coat, some shoes, some shirts, some shorts, put it on, and went out the door. And stuck my thumb out and got a ride immediately. And took off. God said go. I was going to help somebody at the time. So I went, and I lived with them for a while because I was helping them. And the wonder of that is that when God tells you to do it, He's just testing you, because you don't have to do it. It's not going to ruin your life. It's not going to make you more holy. Didn't me. If anything, man, I was eating a lot of asparagus. We had to grow asparagus, by the way. It was kind of an interesting thing. We wound up down in Modesto, of all places, or King City. That's right, King City. And so, I was, long story short, ministering to my sister, but we had no food, so we had to grow asparagus. So we ate asparagus over and over and over again. Then we kept growing it and eating it, and that was the only thing we had for about a week, I guess. And then finally got some food, got some things together, but it was pretty tight there for a while. But man, we made some great asparagus soup because we didn't know how, so we just poured it all in. We kept throwing in asparagus and boiling it. We made this really thick asparagus soup. It's delicious, man. It was some of the best times of my life, I remember. I think, as much as I remember of it. But the point is that if God is telling you to do something, then you ought to do it, because that's what determines whether you have abandoned yourself to God or you are reserved about your relationship with God. Is He got all of you, some of you, or part of you? And all you need to do is be honest about it. Because if you're honest, He's only got 10% of you. That's what most people usually give God. About 10%. Because one day a week, for one part of that day, they give God, freedom to, speak to Him, and then that's it. Now, if you add up Sundays and Wednesdays, the timing that you're willing to say that God has you, and then, add something else together. Then you could say a certain amount of hours in the day, maybe God has you. Maybe if you're doing some devotionals that you're doing every day, maybe God has you. I had a friend recently tell me, well, you work too hard. And I said, not really. I'm loving it. I'm doing just what I enjoy. I said, it's not work for me. I said, I'm just abandoned. I said, I abandoned all my things I wanted to do because this is what I've always wanted to do. So I'm completely abandoned to whatever God wants to do. It's like if we get all the devotionals recorded or shared, or videos recorded and shared, or things posted, praise the Lord, rejoice in it. If we don't get any done, I praise the Lord, rejoice in it. If God says stop, like the other day He did, and I stopped, I put out a flyer and said, today, God said stop, so I stopped. That was it. And that's all. I did. Of course, arrested. It was kind of, maybe that was about it. But I don't know what it was for. It was just, God said stop. So I did. But the abandonment to God is something that Chambers was always talking about, because abandonment never produces the consciousness of its own effort, because the whole life is taken up with the one to whom we abandon. We are caught up into Him, and we live in His realm and world according to His timing and His will. Beware of talking about abandonment if you know nothing about it, and you will never know anything about it until you have realized that John 3:16 means that God gave Himself absolutely. And when I read that at the beginning, God so loved the world, I recognized that God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that God had given all of Jesus to us. His life was laid down. All that He could ever be, all His selfishness, anything that He might have ever had, was gone for me. So I suddenly realized, that I needed to share Tozer today in teaching. But I also needed to reiterate this in utmost, because if you're going to give your life to God, to make it the utmost, if you're going to be in ministry, you need to be utmost. And you need to get off of your Harleys, get off of your own little quirky, selfish little book tour, or your little neat idea that you have in ministry, and get back to the reality of whether or not it's abandoned to God, or you're just abandoning God and doing your own thing. Because there's a majority of people out there that just think because they got into ministry now, okay, I get to write my books, make a little money there, I get to go on a speaking engagement, make a little money there, people will pay for this, take care of that, as long as you pay for the traveling, and this kind of thing, and that, the other thing, then I'll come see you, we need to work this out so that, everybody's paying for their part, doing their share and responsibility. I don't think so. You see, there's still people today alive that have abandoned themselves to God to demonstrate that something could be true. Rick Warren was one of them. When he said that I will not take 90% of this book, I will take 10% of this book and leave 90% to God, he proved it could be done. And the reality is it became a bestseller in the world. Right up there next to the Bible. What do you got? What are you willing to be? What are you willing to do? I said to myself, at this stage of my life, at the end of my life, I said, honey, I know when the world's really going to end. I said, pretty confident of that. I said, you and I know, we talked about it, I said, pretty confident about within a few years, more or less, when the rapture will be. I said, we talked about that. I said, pretty confident. What do you want to do? I said, I know what I want to do. I said, I want to throw it all out there in the ministry. I said, I want to go after God with all my heart, soul, mind, strength, and let God use me any way He wants to, all the days that He wants to. So I just want to give it to Him. Let it go. Let's run with it. Let's run the race. Let's go out with a bang. Let's go out with a joy. Let's shout it to the mountaintops. Let's go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell the mountain that Jesus Christ is Lord. But you know what I'm saying. I just wanted to give it all I got. Because, hey, I've done everything I ever wanted to do, I went to Jerusalem, wasn't all I thought it would be. Lived there, stayed there, Went to Alaska, lived there, loved it, came back, Went to all kinds of places around the country, liked it. It was kind of like, but it wasn't quite the same as what I'm doing now. And now I have that longing to be gone, that let's get ready to go rather than get ready to stay. Because, no offense, most ministries I see would rather stay than go, and don't prepare anyone for knowing the times that they live in, or preparing as the last generation to be expectant, really, beyond the point of just saying, well, yeah, Jesus is coming, and yes, there's these signs, and it could happen, in the next few years, but, don't make it practical in your life, don't go, like divulge or divesting your investitures, by, maybe using it for the kingdom of God, and don't, go out of your way to witness to people, because after all, you don't want to think they're wacko, and then you'd be wrong about when Jesus is coming. I mean, you don't want to warn a lot of people about getting saved, and then suddenly, they got saved, and now the end doesn't come. You don't want to do that, do you? I do. Because you see, the end is coming. You don't have much time left. There is so little time left that you should be looking at the fact of being able to say to your grandchildren, I'm sorry, but that college fund just isn't going to cut it. Because you ain't going to be there. Because if you're 10 years old, you ain't making it. Sorry, you don't have 20 years. Guaranteed. 20 years, 10 years, 20, 10, 20. Well, 10 years, But is that really what you want them to do when they grow up? Go to college? Well, the Lord returns, rapture's coming, learn a career job, motivation. Yeah, I'm sure that's really going to be useful in the kingdom of God. I don't know. We live in the last days. We were born for such a time as this. We should be looking at the first century Christians to give us an example of what the last century Christians should be doing, the same way that the first was last and the last should be first. If we're not doing what the first century Christians are doing, we're missing the boat. We're really not following through with an abandonment to God, because they were willing to march into hell, not for heavenly cause. They were willing to march into the arena, into those places of death, to be torn by lions, to be crucified, to be killed and martyred for the sake of Jesus. And if they could do it in such a way to bring a witness to those around them, they were thrilled by it and sang. Because we have Fox's Book of Martyrs that recorded it for us. We were told these true stories of the facts of history and how it worked out in their lives. The choice is yours. You don't have to abandon yourself to God. You don't have to get your act together, so to speak. You don't have to be any of the virgins, looking for the Lord's return. You don't have to be 5 wise that have plenty of oil and has always been witnessing and is going to witness even more so. Shining their light just as bright as they can. Waiting to see where the Lord is. Hey Lord, you here yet? Will you come? And then ready to go. Or are you going to be like that? I'm going to wait till the last minute. Because I got enough oil right now. I'm kind of going to see if it'll last long enough. Keep my light flickering. And then if I need some, I'll borrow some from you. I don't think so. Sorry. Time to put up or shut up. And that's kind of what really Utmost is saying to you. If you're a Christian, and you don't have to be one to be watching these videos, but if you're a Christian, and you know what Jesus said, it's time to put up or shut up. Because you can put up a false facade, a falsetto, a voice that's phony, and make it all out there and say, yeah, but don't take it too serious, we're just going to kind of play with it. Or you could be real about it and say, God, I don't know. God, show me. God will. You can say, Jesus, I really don't understand what he's saying. You need to reveal it to me. He will. You need to get real, because if you don't, you get left. And that's a fact. That's a reality that is so serious that I'm not willing to compromise on it to anyone, whether it be Calvary Chapel or Chuck Missler or anybody. Come to my house, sit down, we'll talk. You want to tell me that every single person that calls upon the name of the Lord is going to be saved and that they're going to automatically go in the rapture? I'm going to say to you, bull. Baloney. I thought I was going to say bull something. No, baloney. That's a packaged meat that's been chewed up, spit out. It's got bone in it, it's got fat in it, it's got all this kind of meat that's been refabricated into something that you could slap together in a sandwich with 2 pieces of bread and eat it. That's what baloney is. That's what it is about everybody's going in the rapture. Because 2 should be taken, 1 should be left. 2 should be in the field, 1 should be taken, the other left. 2 should be taken, You go through that and you already got 50%. You go through the letters of 7 churches, there's only 1 church that was going through. Whether you take it through the age spectrum, whether you take it through the idea of aeonios to aeonios, ages to ages, or whether you take it through the past and present and future, or whether you take it that was, is, and shall be, and ever was, Whether you take it to God applying, or whether it's item specific, whether it comes to you right now and you're reading it and you realize that any one of those 7 letters could be you, and that you need to figure out which one you're in because that's where you're going to be, and God's going to put some of them into the Great Tribulation. You want to argue? That's how serious I am. You don't want to be here. You don't want to be heading to Jerusalem way. You don't want to stand with Jerusalem when God says it's time to go to heaven. You don't want to be caught up in some political party when it's time to be exiting stage up. Because that's where God is asking you. Are you willing to abandon yourself, your self, to Him, so that He can make Himself alive in you? Can I give you a little kvetching and kibitzing, a little bit in here, kind of throw you a little whisper? It's kind of neat having Jesus in you. It's almost like being that guy that was like, that horror movie where he was looking over and he goes, how he's possessed, it's really weird in that movie, The Shining. You really want to be shining. Yeah. No, really, but you want to be shining for God with that glory that He has when you abandon yourself to Him. And then everybody can see it in you because you're lit up. It's like you got the Spirit in you. It's like, hey, he's a Christian. You could tell that. That's obvious. Or you could be like Jack Nichols, and you could be shining. Yeah. You can have your knife because you can have your gun, and you can take your cake and eat it too. Because guess what? God's going to lead you. It's your choice. Shine now or get shined on. Because, frankly, put up or shut up. It's time to get real. It's time to follow through. It's time to be your utmost if you're willing to.